Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special StreamGeeks episode where we're doing industry-specific interviews. Today, I have Scott Whitney with Podworks. Not only does he run a co-op in Las Vegas helping live streamers from the area learn the trade, but he also has multiple different services and businesses in the industry. All this and more coming up next. So Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind your businesses. I know you have more than one.
Happy to. So this all happened basically in 2005. In 2005, Apple announced that iTunes 4.7 would support podcasting. And I didn't know what a podcast was, but I thought this is a Fortune 500 company, I should probably pay attention. So I did some research and found out that a podcast, excuse me, is basically a series of audio files that you can subscribe to. Now, at the time, I was a full-time musician and was focused on selling my CDs. So I had a company called Timberworks Music at the time that did branded music CDs, the kind of CDs that you see at like Pottery Barn, Williams-Sonoma, Crate and Barrel, like the Crate and Barrel Christmas CDs. So we made those kind of things, but for businesses. So one of the types of CDs we had was relaxation music. And I thought, I should do a podcast about relaxation music. So I started the Great Relaxation Music Podcast using my best NPR voice. It was like, welcome to the Great Relaxation Music Podcast. And then we played a couple songs from one of the CDs. And then we had some background on the talent, and then we had a call to action, which was super important. And the call to action was come back to our website and listen to any song. We saw sales go up 23%, directly related to the podcast. Now, this is in 2005. At the same time, we moved to Las Vegas. And in 2005, Las Vegas was the Wild West when it came to new homes. So we bought a new house and we had a pool installed, and the pool builder included for free a 200-gallon-a-day leak underneath our deck. And we found a landscaper who thought the $1,800 deposit was a gift and just kind of left. So I thought, we should talk about this. And at the same time, my wife, Melissa, who is Wife 2.0, said to me very supportively, I don't understand this podcasting thing. Why would people care to hear you say these things? And I thought, well, that's a supportive thing to say. I should probably figure this out. And so I sat down and figured out the criteria for success for podcasting. And it's the same criteria for any kind of online broadcasting. And surprisingly, most people don't know it. But what it is there's two groups of people who matter. There is the audience, the viewer, and then there's the producer. For the audience, I have to do one of two things. I have to either entertain them or educate them. And for the producer, I have to do one of two things. I have to either make them money or motivate people to take action on their behalf. As long as you do one from each side, you've got it figured out. So in January 12, 2006, we launched the Living in Las Vegas podcast, which is the longest running podcast about Vegas that originates here. And on the very first episode, we talked about the real estate gal who helped us get our house. I mentioned her one time on the first episode of a brand new podcast. And the very first email I got was from a guy named Scott Carone who said, hey, we're reaching out to Julie. We have a meeting. She got 2 deals because I mentioned her one time on that new podcast. That's when I recognized, what? This podcasting thing has legs from a business perspective. So on August 1st, 2006, we launched Podworks, which is now an internet broadcasting company that specializes in podcasts and live streaming video productions. In essence, we solved the problem traditional websites have created.
A lot of gems there, and I love the way you put, really the producers kind of place in this whole role and the audience. So Scott, you have a business that focuses on live streaming, podcasting, all of this real-time media. Who is your typical customer here in 2018?
Yeah, so it's people who recognize the need to extend the awareness of their event beyond the physical limitations. Those are the people we work with. So in essence, what we do is eliminate the distance between our clients and the people who are important to them. So who are those? Friends, families, fans, customers, prospects, employees, students, constituents, parishioners, as long as you recognize that need to extend the awareness of that event beyond the physical limitations we're in. So we've worked with Fortune 500 companies. We've worked with, small law firms. We've done big stuff. Like I just worked with Gene Simmons this weekend, but I've also done training films for, solopreneurs. It's really all over the place. It really comes down to, do you recognize the need to extend that awareness? And also, it's a big thing for us about solving the problem of traditional websites. See, the traditional website today is not performing any better than the websites of the mid-90s. And it's because most websites are still, in essence, electronic brochures. And nobody cares about your electronic brochure. You should think of a website as a brick wall. And on that brick wall is a bunch of brochures. And the thing is, your brochures are probably very similar to the brochures of your competitors. As a matter of fact, to some extent, you may be required to use the same terminology. Well, if you do the same thing as everybody else, you look like everybody else. The marketing term for that's called functional equivalency. It's very difficult to say you're different when you act just like your competitors. So what we do is we say, I'm going to blow a hole in the middle of that brick wall. I'm going to let people see in, because the truth of the matter is this. Over and over again, people will tell me, owners will tell me, the best thing about our company is our employees. I'm like, fantastic, let's take a look at your website. And they're nowhere to be found. And bios don't count. So if you're telling me that your employees are the best thing about your company, but they're nowhere on there, something's not right. So what we say is, this is the chance for you to separate yourself from the competitive herd. Put a window in your website. Let people actually see the people who make stuff happen. So that's who we work with primarily.
I love the brick wall metaphor, Scott. It really puts it in perspective for anybody who might not really be a digital marketing expert and wants to kind of think about how their website can do that. My next question for you, and you may have gone through this, so maybe don't take a whole lot of time on it if you've already explained it, but what is your core service? You mentioned typical customers, pretty much anybody who wants to extend the reach of their physical event. What is the core service that you provide these customers?
Yeah, so what it really comes down to is there are people who are doing something new. It's a new product, it's a new service, it's a new offering of some kind. The question that everybody in sales and marketing has is the same, is how do we reach the widest number of people we possibly can? So what do most people do? Well, they'll do press releases, they'll unleash their social media hounds, maybe some word of mouth. But what about the vast majority of people who can't attend your events or your new product because they're not physically there? That's the total addressable market that most people ignore. If this is the total addressable market, the people who can actually be in the physical location is a sliver. Yet these people are basically ignored. So what ends up happening is people say, well, Facebook Live is out there. I'll do a Facebook live stream. And I think you might be asking me about this later, but I'll jump ahead and maybe save you some time. For years and years and years, people in my business have said, oh, this is the year of live streaming. And for years and years and years, they've been lying. Until last year. 2017 was, in fact, the year of live streaming because of Facebook Live. They basically made it easy for people to stream. So what you ended up having is you had a bunch of individuals say, yeah, I'm going to do some live streaming, and I'm at a concert and I'm watching Def Leppard and I want people to see that somebody's pouring sugar on me. And then the company said, you know what, I want to do the same thing, right? So they're like, okay, we're going to live stream because it's the right thing to do. But they look like hostage videos, right? They got the camera and the phone and it's moving all over the place and it's this thing and you can't hear it, you can't see it. And what they're doing is they're poisoning their own well, but they don't know it. And the reason they don't know it is because no one likes to deliver bad news. If my friend Dave is doing a Facebook Live on his phone, I'm not going to call Dave and go, hey, Dave, you should knock that stuff off because you look like an idiot. What I'm going to do is say nothing. So here's what happens to them. Either one of two things happens. Either they keep doing Facebook Live stuff and they're continuing to poison their well, or they stop. And then they don't get to take advantage of what live stream can do, which is completely change your connections with your client. We can quadruple 10x the number of times people actually talk to you if you do live streaming correctly. This stuff with the hostage video is not correct. I mean, I know a guy who was an entertainer, a fantastic musician. He kept doing these Facebook Live things. He's no longer here. And I think part of it was because he wasn't putting his best foot forward. And this is a best foot forward world. You're competing against, the best broadcasters out there now. So it matters that you do good work.
So here's a question for you. I've asked everyone in our interview series this one. It may seem obvious to you, but how has online video changed the offerings that your business has for your services that you provide? Is the ability to live stream, the ability for these videos to get out there, has it actually changed the way your business actually has services that you offer to your customers?
Well, sure. When I started Podworks, it was an audio-based thing. We did corporate podcasts for people. But as video became a big deal, people became aware of this. I mean, if you look at video today on the internet, back in 2014, it was about 60%. This year, it's going to be 80%. So that tells you that video is important to people. So if video is important to people, which it is, and those people are your customers and prospects, which they are, well, then video should be important to you. The problem has always been cost and time, right? If you come into our studio or a studio like this, you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars to have this kind of stuff done. And then you have to wait, sometimes days, maybe even weeks. And so again, people do it themselves and they don't do a great job. So what we've discovered is a way to be able to produce content, whether it's in studio or on site, that completely changes their ability to tell their story. And it's broadcast quality, and it's usually with multiple cameras. So it completely changed our offering. I mean, we went from doing audio-only stuff. We started the Vegas Video Network, which is the first and only live multi-camera broadcast network here in Vegas that specializes in insider news and expert views. That led to the Vegas Video Co-op, so people could use our studio here. And then that led to the live stream Las Vegas, which basically allows me to take my studio and take it anywhere I want.
Very interesting. So it has very much morphed into, changed with the market, reacted to this emerging, video space of online video. The last question I have for you, we've done a lot of interviews here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Here we are outside of Philadelphia, major metropolitan area where LinkedIn is actually reporting that one of the scarcest resources for employers to find are video producers. Actually, television, broadcast, video producers is the most in-demand employee that's hard to find educated, qualified people for. This has just been released in January of 2018 by LinkedIn, who's owned by Microsoft. And they say they have so much data on different people because of how LinkedIn has worked and knowing, who's certified for what different employee. What is it like there out in Las Vegas? Because here it's definitely true that there's just a demand for video, but there's not necessarily the amount of people required to help the businesses get high quality professional video, at least here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, our joke is that every time you hear a clock tick, a new videographer has moved to Vegas. They're everywhere. And they're primarily on Craigslist. But just because you can frame a shot doesn't mean you can tell a story. And that's the problem. They're on Craigslist because they can't even tell their own sales story, let alone help somebody else tell theirs. So there's a lot of people who do know how to shoot. They're everywhere. But there's more to it than framing a shot. There really has to do with how do you establish your credibility without claiming it. And most people don't do it. Most people claim their own credibility, which is the weakest way to establish it. We call it the drunk guy at the party syndrome. Drunk guys claim their own credibility. If you watch most corporate videos, they open with them claiming their own credibility. It never works. So what we do is we teach people, whether it's live or on demand or whatever, how to establish your credibility without claiming it. The vast majority of people, I agree, don't really know how to do that.
Scott, this has been such an interesting interview. I was laughing at parts, just thinking about the golden nuggets that you've provided us. For everyone out there watching, this is part of a StreamGeeks Industry Professional series you can capture and listen to, watch on our YouTube channel. You can find more about Scottney at Podworks by searching on Google. And you can find local StreamGeeks, we're calling them, and our referral network, which Scott is a part of, where you can reach out to industry professionals just like Scott Scott and find someone in your local area that can help you. So thank you for taking the time, Scott. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to like this video and share it with somebody if you're in Las Vegas, or share it with anybody who you think could benefit from this type of knowledge that Scott really laid out for us. I really appreciate it, Scott. Thanks for watching, everybody, and take care. Wow, Scott.